are streaming now. So boom, and I think the levels seem to be good. Can you just give me a mic check right quick?
Sure. One, two, three, four.
You sound okay. It's a little bit low. Is it possible if you turn yourself up just a little bit? It's if not, it's fine. Yeah.
Sure. Hold on.
Levels just look just a little
Is
tad
it
low.
better?
Okay, now it
How's
looks like a
that?
little bit more even. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yep.
okay, okay, it is what it is. Let's get to the business. Okay.
Okay.
So we are live. Okay. Yo, what's up, folks? Check it out. It's your boy DJ Elf7. Today, as you know, I've interviewed many candidates and activists across my time, and actually, I know this guy's a candidate. I'm actually probably more interested in him as an activist because of his long career, right? We're going to talk about that in a moment. So, why don't you introduce yourself to my audience?
Yeah. My name is Michael Zumbluskas. As Lee was saying, I've been in politics since '92, the first Ross Perot campaign. I helped build the Reform Party. I've helped many insurgent candidates throughout my career. I'm talking three, 400 at least. And right now I'm running for Congress. I'm an Army vet. I worked in the nonprofit. Uh, I've worked in the business community, and right now I work for the city. So I have a wide variety of experiences. I grew up in the military. My dad was a military cop for 22 years. So I started elementary school in Okinawa, Japan, and graduated high school in Aviano, Italy, and about another 8 schools in between.
You know, I've looked at your marketing materials, and the thing is that I see that you have a broad perspective, and I appreciate that, right? Not only have you been in many different countries, but you've also been rich and poor, I think, or you've talked about that as well. You've moved
Mhm.
across different, been in different communities, right? You've been in public. Were you in public housing? I know, like, you've been in good schools.
No, no, I've never been in public housing.
But you've been in
I was,
family
I've
schools
been
and
on
schools.
military housing, but
Yeah.
for the troops, but I have never lived in public housing.
But you've had the opportunity to be, in close proximity or working with poor folks and rich folks.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've helped many candidates. Most of the candidates I've helped throughout my career have been insurgent Democrats. Uh, I go into the Niger complex all the time. Actually, one of my supporters is a Democratic district leader, Carmen Quinones, who is also the tenant president of the Douglas houses on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. I've known her for almost 30 years, and we've been fighting the war together, trying to get things done,
That's dope,
helping
man.
candidates.
Hey, quick question. Have you heard of Safe Section 9? Just since you happen to be in that realm?
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah, I haven't really studied it though.
Okay, cool. Just so you know, I have worked with Carmen Canones in the past. That's awesome, dude. Okay, I'm a
Okay.
big fan. Yeah. So let's keep it going. Actually,
Okay.
this interview is gonna be now. Usually I have my usual set, but because this guy's depth of experience and because our enter lacking some stuff that we're working on, that I just this there will be this is a special interview just for the people who are watching. Yeah, and because this guy's Theo Chino actually, I see this guy with my Actors of the Year last year. I see this guy actually lining up in many similar ways, right? Just with his depth and breadth of experience. And I just have to get this in for myself, right? Look, you obviously have a lot of experience working from the Perot era, and I do have some of my co-host Lisa from LA, right? Also from the Ross Perot era, right? Activists like yourself have been in the game for a long time, but everybody, even though there was a study that showed that pundits get things wrong more than random chance, right? Why are
Oh,
people like
absolutely.
yourself not listened to, right? As far as I'm concerned, right? From what I see, someone like yourself who has all this depth of experience, someone like you is the ones I think that should be on the TV, like, and more interesting to listen to because of your depth of experience. But instead, we have these talking heads who are just saying what everybody else is saying. It's so bleh. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I actually was talking to a reporter yesterday saying some of the same things. Like during the '96 Ross Perot campaign and the 2000 uh, presidential campaign, I'm trying to get on television, trying to get other people, even the state chairman of the Independence Party on television, and they didn't want to interview them, but they would interview a Democratic district leader from lower Manhattan on television. Now, I've been on Fox News once or twice. Um, many years ago, and I've also was on CNN once, but it was briefly. I mean, it was like 3 minutes, and that was it. My longest interview was actually, believe it or not, was QVC back during the NAFTA protests because QVC used to have this thing called In Your Interest. And at the end of every hour, they would put on 5-minute slots.
Yeah.
I actually had a 20-minute interview on NAFTA. I actually read the entire NAFTA bill, plus, maybe 50 think tanks analysis of it, countless articles. I would have said that I was one of the foremost knowledgeable people on NAFTA. And the
But
funny
they don't
thing
want to
is,
hear from you. They don't.
oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I started out pro NAFTA. About halfway into the bill, I went, wait a minute, this is pathetic. This is not going to work. This isn't a free trade bill. And as you were saying, they don't want to hear from me. Every time there was a NAFTA protest and I was in a tie, suit and tie, talking, the media would never cover me. But they would always go to this gentleman that we had who was a little slow and interview him. He used to wear the buttons and everything else. However, when I had all the buttons, the hat, and everything stopped NAFTA, the cameras would come over to me. This is how bad it was. And this is how it is still. They
You,
don't want, they, the reason is, think about it. We just found out today that Pelosi's son was on the plane with Pelosi going to Taiwan and all these countries, and he's a big owner of a major Chinese chip company. It's come on,
it's
it's
straight
like,
disgusting. Yeah. So
and that's why they don't want people like me because I can go and I have the knowledge and the depth of knowledge that they can blow these people away. And they know it. They can't handle a lot of my discussions. Prime example is
so that's why we
I've,
need to gang up together, right? And honestly, it's a political and media aristocracy. It's disgusting, and that's
yep.
why. And people, I build myself with my business card. It says I'm New York City's #1 street activist. And
Hmm.
people, if you watch my channel, you're gonna see me on the streets all the time. But it's people think that I'm trying to appeal to the public. No, right? Yeah, I mean that's
Hmm.
part of the game. But really, the real essence, the real reason why I'm out there is to find people just like Mike Zumbluskas, who's out there at events, to find other people who are committed in the game, who are not being talked about, who cannot be talked about, who must be suppressed. They will be pushed to go further, and right, the media is going to black them out. So I go out specifically to find people like this. This is why I go to events. So if my 25-year of activist history, I realize how these people are suppressed, and this is really the true benefit of going to events, right? Being seen by the media who's going to portray it in their own way. No, the key is to find the committed. So sorry to interrupt you with Mike, but
Well, that's okay. I can
okay,
go on forever. Sometimes I need to be interrupted.
okay. So
That's one of my biggest volunteers says that when I'm getting questioned, I get to my best answer at the third minute in a 2-minute answer
okay, we're
because I have a depth of knowledge, and
that's true.
that's one of the things that what I believe an elected official should be a leader, should be a teacher, and not just say things because that's publicly acceptable, that's what the people want to hear. You need to tell people what they need to hear, and that's why the country's collapsing. I don't like sitting things down to a 10-second soundbite or even 5-second soundbite because problems are much more complex than that. And if we're just talking on those superficial levels, we're never going to solve the problems.
I feel
We
you.
have
So the thing is that now I feel like my audience, right? Like, cause they're new to you. I'm kind of new to you myself, right? Like we
to,
bumped into each other a couple times, but now I really want my audience, and I'm sorry to start at the superficial
that's
level,
okay.
right? Because we
Okay.
got to get to know you first, and we're gonna dig down, right? So some people when they have like a political ideology, they'll be like, "Oh, I'm a socialist," or right. I have feeling you go deeper than that from the things you've already said. But is there
Hmm.
an overarching like kind of like ideology or framework that kind of guides your political ideas, whatever?
I call myself a practicalist. I want things to work. I don't come from an ideological perspective. I'll take ideas from the left and the right, depending on if I think they're going to work. And I'm not a genius. So if I find something's wrong and you prove it, I'll change. Or I'll come up, like, prime example was 4 years ago. No, 6 years ago. I was in the streets running for state senate at the time. I met this woman who was an accountant. And, I'm railing against landlords and the price of rent and everything. And I'm talking to this woman, and she told me of one of her clients who owns one building. It's on the Upper East Side. Almost I think it was 90% of every one of his tenants in the building, and he lived in the building, was rent controlled, not rent stabilized, rent controlled. He was not making enough money to pay his taxes on that building because of government regulation. So I had to go back and reevaluate and going, he's right. The government is keeping him uh, basically paying to own this building, which he inherited. He's lived in it all his life, and he was 70 years old, 75 years old at the time. So people like that should get a tax credit to be able to survive.
Okay.
And these are the things that you have to do is listen to what the people need, listen to what the problem is, and then try to come up with a solution. And that's the other thing I try to do is I try to do uh, any policy or position paper I write. I try to solve more than one problem with that position paper. So, for example, I wrote a position paper on homelessness, and
I
one of
actually
the
read
things
that. I
you
read
read it,
about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's unique. You ever heard any of those ideas anywhere else?
Well, I like the specificity of them, right? Like one of them was
Yes,
like, you talked about like now some of them I had questions about, right? And I could get into. I'll ask one of them right now. I think it was near the top of the screen,
sure.
right? Yeah, because just so you know, actually I'm very close with the homeless community, so it's funny that you should have chosen
Okay,
that out of the actually a lot of camps. By the way, just want you guys to look. Actually, I'll flash it on the screen for a moment, right? Yeah, your actual website. Ooh, I
sure.
wonder if I have any emails up to this private. Let's see. Okay. Ooh, who cares? Yeah. Michael Zumbluskas. Let's go to the thing. Okay. Ooh, okay. Do I have Michael Zumbluskas? Okay. Bam. Okay, I'm going to your website on my screen right now, and you could see that if I go to issues, right, there's a lot of candidates out there who have very few issues, maybe two, three issues, right? You can see that there's quite a few issues here. There's even a second page. I'm just showing you this on the screen right now, and I appreciate that, right? Being in a long timer in the game, you've been exposed to a lot of stuff more than a lot of these newbies who were thrust in front of us on one issue. You know what I mean? I'm not mad at that. Maybe they have a specialty, but I appreciate the depth. Anyways, yeah. So one of the things that you said was about the 12-hour shift thing, right? What does that mean? Is that like a work hour shift? Is this then you had another thing about 8-hour shifts of like or 6 hour shifts, people being able to check in. What's this 12-hour shift thing? Maybe you could explain that a
Well,
little
the
bit more?
thing is, because this way, what it is because New York's a 24-hour city. You have, and especially you have homelessness. And one of these ideas came because I worked as a security guard up in Stevenson Commons back in the early 2000s. And one of my coworkers was homeless with a family, but his apartment caught on fire and the building got condemned. So he was homeless, even though he had a full time job. He didn't have the money for the first and the rent and the moval and everything else and paying, uh, the real estate agents. So he was homeless. He had two kids, no, three kids, a wife, and he's working full time. So if what my plan is, I want to segment the homeless population into different homeless shelters. I want to do it by age because you don't want a young 18-year-old kid in with a 45-year-old, 60-year-old drug addict, uh, with mental problems.
Talking about
Eh,
me?
yeah, well, but no, it's one of these things because this way, and then you also want to segment it by whether they're working, whether they have job skills, whether they have mental problems, whether they have health problems. So now you can have each one of these homeless shelters specialized. So if the person, so the social workers are only taking care of a limited number and become specialists in that category.
Okay.
And so if they're homeless, but they have a full-time job,
We could get
then
more into
does,
the because
oh
I
yeah,
have
yeah.
my own ideas on that, like because like I am pretty like
Okay.
I've been in
But
the system, yeah,
that's
I've been put in the
basically
system,
what I'm
but
trying to do
really this is
is
just for my
good.
audience really to get to know you better.
Okay.
So like I know like the homeless issue is part of your issue, but I'm really focusing on, like I said, we're for superficial, then we're going to cut down, right? So the
Okay.
thing
Not a
is that
problem.
we were
Whatever.
talking about your general ideology, right?
Right.
Now some people they are very influenced by other, and just so you know, other people that I have in the online activist interview series, which this is going to be a part of, I ask them the
Mhm.
same questions. So
Okay.
you'll be able to see other people and see how they answer this question, right? So
Okay.
some people they build their, or they find other people very influential in their work. Are there any
Mhm.
particular, maybe other activists or other, like, political figures that you kind of like model yourself after, or you are highly influential to your uh, development?
Well, yeah, I'm a historian, so I go back to some of our forefathers who were, you know, basically did a wide variety of things. That's one of the things in my life. I've done a wide variety of things in my life. Um, I also like I appreciated both Roosevelts, and I loved Harry Truman. The buck stops here. I'm going to take responsibility for what I did. I believe in that. Um, you know, I appreciated Ross Perot for some of the ideas he took. Um, and I appreciated Nader. Now, I didn't agree with all his policies, but appreciated where he was coming from. So, but it's an amalgamation of a bunch of things and my own experience through my life. And I've been helping people all my life. I mean, I've represented people in housing court. Um, I'm not an attorney.
Well, actually, let's find out about that right now, because that actually is a great segue to my next question right there.
Sure.
A lot of people have these positions, blah blah blah. That's nice, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But what are you most proud of accomplishing? How are you effective? So, but with your long history, you may have a couple, two or three things that you feel are relevant. That's okay. You know, what I mean, you could mention them. But
Mhm.
what are you most proud of accomplishing?
Um, just basically helping people um, in my daily life. Helping people if they are.
Sure.
I had a friend that was getting beat up by. I didn't even know her at the time. A friend introduced me to her that was getting beat up by her landlord. I went and stayed with her over Christmas. I helped her through that situation. Little things like that, just being there for people, even if I don't know them.
Okay.
You
As in
know,
terms of programming, may have helped to pass, or maybe legislation, or right, other types of, right, maybe more relevant towards the campaign. Um, because I appreciate that, right? Yeah, and honestly, your answers are very close to myself, so
Mhm.
I particularly appreciate that, right? Probably my audience as well. But in terms of accomplishment, maybe numbers, metrics, um, what have you been able to achieve?
Um, well, at my job, one of the my biggest things. Right now, I work for the New York City Department of Transportation as a resource management analyst in the division that paves the street and fills the potholes. So, but I was able to take in because the Department of Design and Construction was running our milling contractors, and they were doing such a bad job. I was able to bring it into in-house, and I was able to save over $3.5 million a year just with one program. And then I saved over the years, I've also trimmed even more money. I've saved a couple more $1 million on this program by actually looking at it and going through it and basically saying, hey, wait a minute, we can accomplish a lot more through spending. The other thing I'm proud of is even though I have helped other candidates and with position papers and everything else, and they went on to put some things not into law, but they were able to bring the issue up. Prime example is since 2005 for housing in New York City, one of the things that I've continuously pushed was we need to reinstitute the Mitchell Lama program. The Mitchell Lama program was one of the most successful housing programs in the country, not just in the city and in the state, but in the country. But it's gone, and now you know, uh, big real estate's been able to overturn it. Now you have a lot of people in Mitchell Lamas that have been privatized. Within 2 years, 3 years, they no longer living there, even if they lived there for 40 years. But what happened was I was pushing this and pushing this. And then in 2017, I was helping this candidate running for the 5th City Council District. Um, and In that debate, she was a Republican, Rebecca Harari, and I gave her the issue of the Mitchell Llama. But the funny thing is, there was a debate at Waterside Plaza, and all the Democrats and Republican candidates were invited to this debate, and there was like 15, 16 candidates on it. Every single one of them, all but one of them, said they want to bring back the Mitchell Llama program. Nobody was saying that, but the times I ran and everything else, they start talking about it. Same thing happened with one of my uh, things is we need energy, and going to solar and wind is a pipe dream right now because the technology is not there to run the electric grid that we have
Yeah. Well,
on the
before
entire
we
thing.
go, so I'm glad to hear about that. But actually, that was a natural segue into my next question, by the way, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Because just so you know, I do have a separate series that I have for candidates and stuff. I am kind of merging them together here,
Okay,
but this
not a
is
problem.
really focusing on your activism, because
Sure.
really, right? I appreciate that your candidacy, and I gotta put it out and maybe come out and help your maybe do some stuff too.
Okay,
Which
so
district
you
are you
want to
running
go
in for?
back to
I will come
the
out and help
12th
you.
the 12th congressional district in Manhattan in Roosevelt Island. It's basically from
Oh,
14th
Roosevelt Island,
Street
cool.
from river to river up to 98th Street on the east side, 100 on the west side to Amsterdam. From Amsterdam to the river, it goes up to 112th.
Okay.
But you want to talk? I guess you want to talk more about some of my accomplishments as
Well, no, actually, what
the
I want
United
to
We
ask is, right.
Stand and
Well,
being with the Reform Party and stuff like that. I have
I do want to
a
learn
lot of
about
stuff
that
like that.
stuff. I want to get. I move on to. I will move on to the next question, though. Right. The thing is,
Sure.
because we're
Okay.
starting to get into that, we were saying like some of the most effective things. What are some of the most effective things, right? Because there's not really a lot of, the TV projects, right? Instead of people like yourself with experience, right?
Hmm.
They project these people who are going to say what the media wants them to say, or provide the sound bites that's quick and easy, that are easily digestible, instead of really a more complex, nuanced, right?
Right.
So whatever, right? But just from your breadth of experience, you work with like many candidates, right? And you, just so you know, I've actually, just like I told you before, interviewed many candidates running for office. They're watching my program. That's really, I have a specialized audience. They're gonna watch, and you've been involved in so many of them. What are the most effective things that activists can do?
Uh, get out there and meet the people. That that press the flesh. That's one of the biggest things that how I win voters over. Like the other night, I went to the Democratic debate being held at Temple Emmanuel's, and I was talking to the voters, mostly Democrats, going into that debate. Here's a Republican talking to them. And I got a lot more positive responses from people than usual. People are fed up. And because I don't approach things from an ideological perspective, people were surprised at some of my answers. And I think they're even more surprised that I can go in depth on questions when they have it. Sometimes too much in depth because some people, oh, okay, I went over their heads, but I have that happen. But you have to be personable. You have to go in there. You have to be yourself. Don't. That's one of the biggest things that some candidates do. They listen to these political consultants and they try to become someone they're not.
Yeah, that's what happened to Yang, and damn right. But for the candidates, you're right. What about the activists out there? The activists want to be right. Some people are ready to be candidates. Some people feel like they can't be candidates, right? You're an activist yourself, right? Trying to get
Mhm.
policies through.
Right.
What are the most effective things activists can do?
Well, the thing is, that's why I run for office. You can't. I We had the NAFTA stopped. We counted the votes. I learned the issues in depth. We went to the uh, politicians. We had it stopped. Then 2 days before the vote, you can go and see how much the special interests dumped money into these candidates. They flipped, and we lost that vote.
Yeah,
That's when I decided that I have to run for office because we have to get the activists elected to do it, or at least working on people's staff, because activists can only go so far. You know, the prime example is the Ross Perot campaign in '92. He scared the Democrats and Republicans. He frightened them. running a very bad campaign, and he still got 19% of the vote. 19%. He only spent $30 million. Everybody says that's a lot of money. No, if you looked at the other two, they spent like almost $1 billion apiece. Because even though, because what you people don't see is the the state parties, the local parties throwing money into these presidential campaigns, and they're not counted. So, and they have the manpower. You have the unions that have, you know, basically banks and banks of telephones all over the country that they start making phone calls. They have the manpower to go out there and try to, influence how things are done. That's why the activists have to get involved with campaigns and actually go out and basically take people to the polls. Get
Okay,
your friends
that's a
that
good
most
idea.
of them don't vote. Literally take them to the polls. New York State New York City last year had a 22% turnout.
So
I was hoping, Curtis, if they would have people would have got off their asses and walked down the street and voted, we can change things. You know how many elections can be changed if we increase the voter turnout from 22
so
to
if that's
6?
right, if that's the number one, so if that's the issue right there, and I appreciate that, right? What would you say is the number one problem, right? It seems like really the focus is towards like mobilization, which is cool, right? So is the problem more the apathy or the problem more the money that's influencing things to be for commercial interests? What would you say is the number one problem, right, as in terms of that, and how can we go about solving? What are your ideas to help solve those
Well,
issues?
it's a combination of both the apathy and the money that's coming in. That's my biggest problem. I don't raise much money. I've always had a problem, asking for money. Even when I was homeless for about a month in college, I had I was sleeping on different friends' couches. Even though I was working, I was homeless, but I finally found another apartment. But I don't count that as being that bad because it was college and I could just jump on somebody's couch. I had enough people to do that. It so I don't even put my little brief thing in the perspective that's going on today and some other people that have real problems. I didn't have a real problem.
Okay.
Um, but the other big problem is the media. They refuse to put more candidates on. Going back to the Ross Perot campaign, before the 92 campaign, voter turnout was declining every single year. And because we have this, you have to vote Democrat and Republican all the time, you're not getting alternative voices. And they made the mistake of putting Perot in the debate stage. And if you actually look at it, he was running at about 8%. After that first debate, he jumped up close to 20. After the second debate, he was at like 22, 23%. Then that's the trick. You look at the Jesse Ventura campaign in Minnesota when he won. He was included in the debates. So if we give more people, we need more parties, more voices out there portraying different ideas, because that's going to motivate people. Because, oh, we're hearing something different. It's not the same old. And the other problem,
If I could just interject for
sure,
a second, yeah.
sure.
I agree with you in most of the ways right there, and this is like a little person side. I usually don't do this, right? But the thing is that, right? I agree with you. I do work with Republicans, Independents, Greens, Libertarians, Democrats, and all the parties, just so you know. I make no distinctions, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Right,
the thing is that, right, they always talk about the selected party leaders. The party leaders also work with the media, right, to keep out the people like yourself who are working behind the scenes, the grassroots activists. They don't want to hear from us. They only want to hear from the selected news givers. You know what I mean? So I would say that's
exactly.
beyond just the parties. I would say it's a problem of party leadership versus because working with all the groups, right? You do so as well. They all pretty much say very close to the same thing. Their
Yep,
differences are much less than they're led to believe. So I agree with you that we got to get them together, but get them together in a way that maybe just being able to access the debate stage with the leadership being able to access it, they're gonna keep fighting and doing the BS and locking us out on the ground. You
yep.
get what I mean?
Right. Well, that's the beauty right now, what's going on. People are actually waking up to the mainstream media. And so, Joe Rogan is the most listened to man in the world right now. You have Tim Pool, you have Matt Taibbi, uh, Greenwald. All these people are leaving the mainstream media, and more people are going to those uh, alternative sources, and
So, quick
such as
question:
yourself,
Have
such as
have they ever
yourself.
covered you? Are
Um,
these alternative sources ever covering you?
no, not at
They
this
have
point in
their
time.
own, right? They have their own little freaking
Right.
aristocracy going on. Like they,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Yeah, they're alternate, but they still not right. They still not with us.
Right. Well, believe it or not, most reporters in this city, political reporters, know who I am.
Yeah,
When there
they know
was
me
when,
too, man.
Yeah, and
But they
when
ain't
there
talking
was
about
something
us.
going, when there was something going on in the Independence Party, or anything else going on with the third party or something, guess what?
They get you.
They used to call me up all the time, but they would not put me on New York One. The one time I was on New York one time debating Lenora Fulani, and
Yeah,
when I tore her apart, even though was no, it was Dominic Carter at the time. It wasn't Errol Lewis, and he was trying to help her out, and I still tore her apart. And that's one of the reasons they don't want me on. I have to, because I learned I went to a Jesuit college that helped me out a lot. That I understand when I'm in a debate, I'm not just trying to get my points across. I'm listening to them to counter say, hey, no, what you're saying is wrong. You're not doing the research. You're giving these talking points. That's why I have a huge problem with the progressives that's always pushing Scandinavia, because in Sweden, they have 100% vouchers.
yeah.
100% vouchers. You go tell a progressive that, oh, no, 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 we don't want that because they're in the pockets of the teachers' unions.
I
Oh, no,
could
we
see
don't
him.
want
I could
100%
see when you get
vouchers.
on the mic, the control room in the background, red lights go on. It's like Mike Zumbluskas is off the reservation. Off the reservation. Alert! Alert! Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I think what also scares them is that I work across party lines. When I get elected,
Yeah.
one of the biggest things I'm going to do when I get to Congress, I'm going to go and talk to every single veteran in Congress. And right now, I think there's 87 of them, and there's probably going to be more after this, and try to get a caucus together, because most veterans, not all, but most veterans are more practical. That I call myself a practicalist.
Hmm.
And and right now I'm scared for this country. Not just what's going on internally, but externally. With them, the cancel culture is a devastating effect. They're trying to cancel our Constitution,
Right.
and freedom of speech and freedom of association are two of the greatest rights our forefathers gave us. In the left, it's mostly coming from the left, even though, oh, the right's doing, no, it's mostly coming from the left, this cancel culture. And when they're actually shutting people's bank accounts down, you're not allowed to use, there's people in this country that can't use Uber, they can't use PayPal because of their ideology. Not that they've done anything wrong.
Can I
Candace Owens is one of those people.
can I tell you about some of my work just right quick? Yeah.
Sure.
Look, during the 2021 mayoral debates season, right during the and the city council races, I had cross-party, you know, platform and dis- discussion panels, including a police reform event with the blessings of Serpico. You know
Hmm.
Serpico, right?
Yep. Yep.
Also, there's something that I had in this election cycle 22 because of that the with the redistricting,
Hmm.
there's unique vulnerabilities. So what happens is that I had something called the Unified Platform for 22, where we actually emailed every single senator, every single person running for Senate or for House of Representatives, a federal position, and every governor of every state, and we got participation from all the parties once again,
Hmm.
Republicans, Independents, Greens, Libertarians, and what's kind of funny is that I was actually a top person in the Yang Gang as well, right? And I led
Hmm.
actually Yang Gang and MPP to Schumer's doorstep. So I've done a lot of this work, but none of it gets talked about. So in terms of ideological alignment, in terms of bringing the groups together, like I said, I work with all of them together. I'm really excited to work with you. You know, Theo Chino does this as well.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So What about the
And,
future
and
of us
here,
working together here in New York? I'm really excited about
absolutely,
that.
absolutely, I'm willing to do that. One of the other things what we have to do too is, this is the biggest key. We need to start getting kids involved in politics, in letting them know our history. And I'm talking probably at junior high school level
Oh, can I?
up.
Okay, so what I'm doing right now, just so you know, when we talk about student reform, right, or school reform, all they talk about is debt relief, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
which really is
Right.
just, but the school is incredibly corrupt. I actually have
Oh,
a
yeah.
video on my channel of me exposing Hunter College and how they're like ripping off students for money.
Hmm.
Those administrators still work there to this day. Instead of lowering the price of the college, which has been pumped up to insane levels, right?
Hmm.
So the thing is that you're absolutely right about that. So what I'm trying to do is, and I hope that you could maybe be a part of it or even lead it, right? I
Okay.
actually look at all the student governments that I could, right? Some states even have localized, like concentrated, like a student government for that state or like kind of like a group, but New York has lost that. I used to be a group called SASU. So the thing is that in August or September, I want to actually have a convention. I have a lot of emails for a lot of student governments, and I'm going
Hmm.
to hit that list again. I also just started working at Sunrise. Some of my people are trying to get me out of there. They're also a large student group. A National Action Network has a student group. Let's have a student convention, right? Yeah, and I would love for you to be there, right? And other
Absolutely.
people just like yourself to talk to these kids and get them to fight. That's why I'm actually pissed at NIPERG. Yeah, what's up, NIPERG? Yeah, I hope you watch. I know you read my emails. NIPERG has a policy that they do not work on local issues at the school for tuition lowering. They're only going to work on state issues. You are teaching a new generation not to work on things that directly impact themselves. Come on, man. You know, I mean, you guys got to get some balls together and start working
And,
on this
and the
stuff.
thing is,
Yeah,
that's where you can make the most difference. A city like New York is harder to do because it's an international city, it's huge. But if you're in a small town, there have been high school students that won the mayorship in those towns around the country. I think there's been like three or four of them over the last 2 decades. One was 17 years old when he won, but he turned 18 in like late December. So when he swore on January 1st, he was legally able to hold the thing. Because
county
when you
committee.
have
They could the high school kids, the college grads can still do it. Even the high school kids at 18 can still do
yeah,
county committee.
well, Jerry Nadler got elected while he was still in college.
Let's go.
You know, he's been in a public office before he ever graduated from law school. You know,
Old guy now.
yeah. And he's never held a real job in his life. But this is what we need to do, get these kids and let them know, hey, this is important, that you can make changes. Now, we can't bullshit them and say it's
Absolutely
going to
not.
happen. It's not going to happen overnight. This is a sustained uh, program, and this is how we basically you know train kids that they're going to be the ones that get elected in 5, 10 years, maybe sooner, maybe later, and they're the ones that are going to do the changes. Old fogies like me, if I get elected, great, hopefully. But if even if I don't, that's
Yeah,
one of the things. Hopefully I inspire other people, which I have
I'm
through
all
my
with it, bro.
past.
I'm all
And
with it.
that's what we have to do. And I'm one of these people that literally get calls every election year from at least 10, maybe 20, 25 candidates. Sometimes I'll get calls from 5 candidates in the same election, and I give them the advice. I tell them how to do petitioning, how I'll create their petitions for them. I'll give them the advice all for free.
Yeah, that's what I love, man. Yeah, just like
Yeah.
with you, very close. I actually already compiled a list of student governments all over the country, and I'll shoot
Hmm.
that list over to you. You know what I mean?
Okay,
Just
absolutely.
as hopefully we could share some information. I'm really excited to meet you.
Right.
Yeah,
But let me give you one of this. This is because I'm an old fogey. I put myself through college, you know. And one of the things is, I graduated from college in '83, the first time, and then I went back, got a second degree, and then went to grad school. Never completed that. But when I was going to college in '83, from '79 to '83, I had student work study, and at that time, it was like, say you worked in the bursar's office. There
yeah,
might be 5 full-time employees. in 20 student work studies.
Yeah.
Now it's reversed. This is one of the reasons why your tuition's going up. The pay, they've increased their administrative staff. They've increased the pay of their administrative staff. Uh, when I was going to college in the early 80s, you might have had Yale or Harvard or something. Maybe the president of the school was getting paid $1 million. Now you have SUNY schools that are paying these people $1 million.
Yeah.
This is why your tuition's going up, and this is why they don't listen to you. That's why they don't want to do it, because it's all going to the administrative staff. It's
That's a
going
big
to
part of it.
building new
Big part of it.
buildings and everything
Yeah.
else. That's why. And that's why the inflation rate from when I went to school to now,
Well, we'll
I probably,
let's
I,
organize and get the kids
okay,
together.
absolutely,
Let's
absolutely.
email
Okay,
every single CUNY school, student government. Let's actually, like I said, like I'm networking with those other groups, student groups. Let's put it together and get this message right into their ears if they're willing
absolutely.
to listen, because
Well,
they're
that's part
being
of the problem.
steered
Yeah.
away. Yeah. Hey, this is as from the online access interview series. I said like I asked pretty much all the online experts about the same questions. We've pretty much
Mhm.
covered that. Said I'd like to cover you as a candidate. I don't know if you have time to do that. Maybe we'll do that later today, right? But I'd like to cover you as a candidate to find your positions on the issues and to learn more about you as a candidate. But I just
Okay.
want to share your and just as in terms of just being an activist. Is there any last messages that you want to really, because really who's watching is other actors who really want to learn, right?
Right.
How to be better activists.
Well, don't give up. And remember, this country is founded on fighting City Hall. I have fought City Hall, I have fought government in many different positions, and I've been successful numerous times. So don't give up.
Is that a call for a
That's the
local
biggest thing.
action? City Hall?
Lo-
Are you? Yeah.
well, not just city, well, local, state, federal,
Okay.
we need to change. It's everything. Even nonprofits, because I have problems with a lot of
I
nonprofits.
saw that.
And it's true. When you look at nonprofits, it's a $2 million nonprofit, and the top five administrators are getting 1.7 million. What's going into programs? It's a boondoggle.
Yeah.
And so we have to watch that too. Just because it's a nonprofit doesn't mean it's not good. It's not.
Oppressive and people taking advantage. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so we have to go and look at all this stuff. Educate yourself. That's the biggest thing. Educate yourself, not only on the issues, but educate yourselves on how the politicians vote, what money they get from who. Educate yourselves on the election law. That's the biggest thing that I learned all these years.
Is
I
Millbrook
know
houses
the,
in your district?
excuse me?
Millbrook houses? That's in the I think South Bronx.
No, I don't go into the Bronx. I'm only
What
in
about
Manhattan.
Reese projects?
Where's that?
I'm actually that's on the Lower East Side. Look, I do Jacob
No,
Reese.
no, no,
Yeah.
no. I only go down to 14th Street.
Okay. If you have any public housing that you know
Oh, I
has a
have
demo
like
day coming
seven
up,
of them.
or
I have,
and actually I do have a relationship with Carmen. You could ask her about me. Yeah, DJL7.
okay,
I'm actually have 10,000 flyers that I printed to go in and get people activated, telling them about what's going on in NYCHA. I encourage you to come with us to our upcoming with Save Section 9. Also work with them as
okay,
well. You can see that
okay.
I'm trying to get people in public health to run for county committee so they can educate themselves.
Absolutely. That's the other
Yeah,
thing. That's very smart.
and yeah,
That's how you do it. That's what I'm talking about, learning the system. You take over the county committees, that's
yeah,
the ruling body. That's who elects the chairman of that county. That's how you start changing things.
absolutely.
You have to go at the low level. A lot of actives says the system's broken. I'm not going to learn it. I'm not going to do it. You need to learn the political system. There is a way to
Yeah.
take it over legally, and make the changes from within. It's harder. It's hard, but don't give up.
With primaries and midterms coming up, I actually just had a meeting yesterday with Bernie Sanders people. The Save
Hmm.
Section 9 group has actually just come back from DC. We actually got to meet with AOC and Pelosi, and not that like that I think they're the savers everything. I'm skeptical as well, but we are getting some
Hmm.
high profile events. And if you're working public housing, Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. we have our meeting with Save Section 9. I encourage you to come. There's a
Okay.
lot of exciting things happening, especially right now. You're not under the pressure of the primary, right? You got past
Right.
that, so you're waiting till November, right? You
Right.
said. So this is a fabulous time because so much stuff is happening these next couple weeks, and it's time to
Oh yeah.
jump in and say hi. Yeah, just so
Absolutely.
this Saturday, just so you know, Paperboy Prince, he's gonna be at Union Square. I don't know if you know Paperboy Prince, right? Yeah, at Union
Yeah, I
Square, so
met him
that's in
once.
your district. He's trying to record an album to get into the Guinness World Book of Records, right? To record 171 songs. If you want to make an appearance there, I'll be at Millbrook Pros. That's not in your district, but let me know during the week. I'll come out to and you know, if you have literature for me too, if you really about, let me know more about where you stand on the public housing thing. If you're an ally, when I go to
Okay.
those public housing to hand out my literature, hit me off with yours. I'll hit you. I'll work for you too, man. You know what I
Okay.
mean? I like what you're
Absolutely.
doing for real.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So share your social media, your website, and all that with my listeners.
Okay.
Yeah.
My website is electmikez.com. I don't have people spell my name because it's a little bit difficult. Um, also, it's Mike Zumbluskas at for my Twitter account. I really don't use that Instagram that much. I need to start using it. And my Facebook is Michael Zumbluskas for Congress.
Sure.
So,
And there's one. I know you asked me what to mention one thing before we go, right? Yeah, you talked about there's something going on with the hypocrisy regarding busing going on in the homeless shelters in the migrant community. Um, that's something that you felt was that you want to talk about. So I want to give you the space to address that issue.
yes, no country in the history of the world has been able to absorb this many people. And right now we are in an economic we have huge economic problems. We can't take this many people in. We have 80,000 of our own homeless. How are we going to take another 2, 3, 4 million people into this country and solve the problems that we already have? And all the people that want open borders, there's over 3 billion people in the world that earn under $2.50 a day. A lot of them, and if you have them come here, it's going to cost a lot more money, and it's going to exacerbate the problems we already have here. And they are coming here from all over the world. So until we can actually solve our own problems. We're not producing enough housing to take in that many people. Right now it's about 2 million people that have come in this year alone, and probably 100,000 of those are going to end up in New York. How are we going to house all them? How, medical, we have people that have medical problems that aren't getting the care. Now that's another 100,000 people that we have to take into our systems. It's unpractical to actually absorb this many people.
Okay.
And it will be less humane bring them here, and now they're homeless, they're in the street, they don't have the medical care. So we're actually hurting them more than we're helping them by letting all these people in at this point in time.
I think that's you know, I'm glad that you were able to get that set in here. Maybe you thought this was a campaign one, so maybe that fit more for the
Yeah,
campaign
okay,
one.
not a problem.
Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah.
So
And like I said, I have many more things I could talk about. My experience with, you know, third party activism, nonprofit activism, and trying to get things passed and done.
I
And
have a feeling, honestly, just from the things that you've said today, from looking at your body of work, I have a feeling we're going to be working together more in the future, for real. Yeah, for
I
real, for real.
absolutely, I
It makes
appreciate
sense,
that.
right? So,
Yep.
I'm excited, man. You definitely are coming in as a very high. I have a high estimation of your ability, and I'm really excited, man. So I can't wait to do more with you.
Thank you. I
Hopefully, we have an
appreciate
interview
it.
later on about your candidacy. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
is that? I
Have to
think
be
that's pretty
after
much the interview.
5:30. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. God
Okay.
bless. All right. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you very
Mike.
much. Enjoy. Bye.
Peace, bud. All right, folks. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed that interview.